Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PBX. Recently, you just saw a match of a best of three go downhill as much as it possibly can be, but we're back for one more. A match between legends, Myth versus Esports Gaming, going at it for a best of one. But before we step ahead of ourselves, I'm Puffo Bob. I'll be leading you through these matches with none other than the man, the myth, the legend. Piercing, how are you doing?
Way to inflate my ego. I greatly appreciate it, Puffle Bob. I'm doing alright. That first matchup was definitely something to behold. I was definitely looking for PBX's improvement, and honestly, I think I got more than what I was looking for. I mean, the way that they were playing was honestly fantastic. Great best of three. But I'm looking forward to this best of one because I do have a good amount of experience with Myth Academy and EWAVE. I've seen these teams before, and I really want to see what progress that EWAVE has made as well. I kind of conflate both EWAVE and PBX. I think they're both kind of similar in some of their faults when it comes to the more leadership and IGL shot calling kind of territory. But if PBX is pulling out the punches like they did, I'm expecting a very similar, if not even stronger vibe coming in from EWAVE. So really looking forward to this matchup.
So am I, and with it, let's take a look at the current bracket just to see where we're standing to get it all down to earth. And of course, you see it right now, EWAVE 1-0 against Project Black X, and Myth 1-0. We follow up. This was the Project Black X game we just saw, and moving into the upper brackets, one above is going to be EWAVE versus Esports. Of course, that's going to be Myth, the opposition, and we're talking about these teams so much, how about we see the actual rosters? Who are these players we're going to be seeing here in action? Well, you can see the left, you can see the right, you can read the names, and with it, you can expect absolute action from every single one of them.
Oh, 100%, and I do see some familiar names coming in from EWAVE, so for those who've had me cast them before, welcome back. Good to see you again. But for the newbies, welcome. Glad to see you. Glad to have you. Let's get this party started. Now let's take a quick look at the map bans real quick. Let's see what we're gonna actually be getting into here. It looks like a lot of the more toss-up maps away, and that's gonna lead us actually with Clubhouse, the classic threes, with Myth Academy gonna be going on the defense here. So we're gonna see that action on the attack coming from EWAVE Esports so early on in the first half, which all the more excited for.
But before we get to the action, we have to thank our lovely sponsors of today.
Huge shout out to IT Discount 24 for sponsoring the PBX Pro Series 6. IT Discount 24 is your refurbished IT partner. Head on over to their website or eBay shop posted in the chat to find all your refurbished PC needs. Whether corporate or private, they'll have you covered.
Alrighty, this is it, Piercing. We're run-of-the-mill Clubhouse. It's as old as time and as old as Siege can be, at least competitive side. Going right over to the operator bands, and we see the Blitz. Any other following predictions you have yourself, Piercing?
I think the Blitz is typical. I would expect the Monty. I'd be very shocked that if on Clubhouse of all maps, Monty is still there. Though I could expect a Ying ban. That would make sense. We're definitely going to see an Azami ban. There's the Monty, as everyone to absolutely nobody's shock there. And then I think we're probably going to see a Fenrir ban, depending on how aggressive EWAVE wants to play it. But if they're able to match the vibe of PBX, which we saw as they were the ones to actually take out PBX themselves and how aggressively they play, I doubt that would be the case, as we will see the Mira ban instead, which makes sense. You can easily shoot out a Fenrir. You can't so easily shoot out a Mira, although I don't like the Mira ban as much. But the Azami ban? No! Azami will be on the board for Garage Balcony, as Valkyrie will be banned instead. Don't get me wrong, still a good choice, especially for basement and second floor, but I kind of, well, all the way around, honestly, in the main rotation. But I honestly was expecting Azami to get a ban, but nope. Fluency from Myth Academy will be running it as we go to second floor bedroom and gym.
That's what puts me on my toes. Normally, if we look at like a deep look into back old Siege, we have that Thatcher Thermite dynamic duo, and to get rid of it, so CC wouldn't be as easily breachable, you ban out the Thatcher. Okay, on defense, you do the reverse, and so the defense doesn't have easy anti-breach, you get rid of the Cade. I would put a similar situation here with the Monty and the Azami. They kind of counteract each other. If you have the Monty and Azami, they play off of each other in Garage. Who wins? We'll have to see. But if you ban the Monty, at least ban the Azami too. An interesting bang, it's going to be Valkyrie, which yet again is quite reasonable, especially on the kitchen side. You have so many cameras all the way on the ceiling. C4s from below, they're deadly, especially on Church of all sites. But in the meanwhile, let's take a look at gym and bedroom that right now we're having to see. And we see that Fenrir, we see the Azami, absolute powerhouses, because choose them while you still can.
Oh, 100%. If you can't get, or if you can get them, use them. I mean, there's a lot of operators like that, whether it was, Jackal in ranked or Fenrir and Azami in competitive. If you get the chance, go for it. And it does look like we're going to see an early push into Garage. You've already got Azami holding that position there. That's going to be over by CCT or under Garage, possibly looking for a fast initial clear. No entry quite yet, and they are going to be running that extension into CCTV as well. That's going to be Smarts on Bandit with the active trick. They do get that Jacuzzi wall. That's going to be an early breach, allowing them to get that, but then again, with very little opposition to prevent that wall from getting open. That's to be expected, but usually you rotate off of that immediately after. So now the focus is going to be that CCTV clear. A little bit of damage coming out onto Thermite, going for or getting this wall primed, but that prime won't be enough. Bandit going to be able to catch that wall as well, putting it into overtime to prevent these walls from being open, and that is going to be Thermite's last breach. Already shots now coming out. Ligs taking a significant amount of damage, bringing him down to 30. Still keeping his head over in Logi, though. A lot of pop shots coming out, but no downs yet. And as I say that, Kex will go down, as Duskin will be the one to finish that job on EWAVE. But we'll see more picks back-to-back. Duskin able to get a double kill there, and then another back-to-back from coming in from Monster. That's going to be the refrag there. Now a 3v3, minute and 30, and we've got our first bouts coming out. No significant active utility coming out. The hard breaches have already been broken. There's really not much to be lost from either side, as the main players are still around. That's going to be Grim and Nomad from EWAVE and a Zombie from Myth Academy.
What a time to switch for that Scopos. Right as damage was taken, we're back to Garage, we're back to safety, and ready to rotate. It's a 3v3, you called it, and with 1 minute remaining, there's going to be needed some sort of proactivity here from EWAVE, as they have gotten down this Jacuzzi breach. That's a lot of pressure. You extend off of it, but you have to watch out for Case, as he's going to be getting another kill. That's going to be de-equalizing the situation, as we have one above for Myth here on the defense, looking quite strong. It's the Grim, but he's gone, just as I say it. Caster Curse at its peak, and leaving it all down to Monster. First round, look at this intensity. Flashes are coming out, going in close and personal. But yet again, you need to have that information, which you lack. But Smarts doesn't need to work off of information. He has the sense, he has the MP7, and he's going to be finishing it off.
Oh yeah, that MP7 puts into work, especially when you got a little bit of that teabag energy coming in as well. But I mean, I think really what we're kind of seeing here, just off of this first round, is very high energy coming in from both Myth Academy and EWAVE Esports. Both of these teams making really good strides, but I think EWAVE just didn't have the space to come with the bouts of trades coming in. Yes, they traded, but I think the space gains that they got in turn led them to be a bit disadvantageous for them, and that proved to be too much, as they had to take even more fights in less favorable terms in order to turn it around, leading to Myth Academy to sweep it up. So I think for EWAVE, it's going to be important to try to get a little bit more bang for your buck as you make your way onto site. But other than that, I really don't think either team played particularly wrong. I'd say they both played very well. It's just Myth Academy was better in space denial.
Without a doubt, and in the meanwhile, we're going to be heading down to Church, because the best two sides here are definitely going to be gym and bedroom, and also this downstairs. In the meanwhile, we keep open this to Barao, which would have been an interesting pick as well, especially seeing that Clubhouse is the most breach heavy map out of all? Without a doubt. We have hatches on downstairs. We have breaching into church. On the upstairs, don't I even need to mention it. If you know Clubhouse, you know the shtick, and with it, we need to get into it, because that's why we have the Thatcher, the Hibana, all thermite. In case anything goes wrong, there's a backup. In case it all goes to ruins, we have someone to back up that gadget that was lost, and that's why we have the Hibana thermite dualistion. In the meanwhile, though, the defenders, it's going to be hard to get through that Cade, and all the while we do have the Thatcher, it's going to be the Tubera, that's going to be the Bane, the bringer of bad news, and we head slowly in. Now, taking a bit of a passive approach, it doesn't seem like Myth are really bringing out this proactivity that they did earlier. In the prior round, we saw Azami lurking around in this Garrett side, being very aggressive, and at the same time really staggering out opponents, pushing them away from Cash and CC. This time around, we're having none of it. It's a bit of a shell strategy.
Oh yeah, so far, I mean, we're not seeing too much engagements coming out of it again. You know, it's kind of maybe it's a mismatch of positioning from both teams, just not being able to catch each other, but so far, it's been pretty dang calm. I mean, we're seeing a pretty anchor-heavy composition coming in from Myth Academy, most likely going to be focusing on that pushback. That's going to be those 3 Nitros on the board from Duskin, Casey, and Smarts, but either way, it seems pretty dang relaxed, and that could prove a little bit problematic, considering that EWAVE does not have an IQ or anything like that to catch any potential nitros or aggressive behavior coming through. But so far, Myth Academy playing this really passively here, banking on that full anchor composition, which, as always, I tend to disagree with that. I don't think that's ever the right move, but if you can play aggressively enough in your anchoring, maybe you can get the impact that you're looking for. And there it is, Tubero going off, but still able to stop the thermite charge. And this, I feel like this would be better energy put towards denying the Hibana towards getting hatches, because Hibana is much slower and that's a bigger time waste. And wow, what a swing coming in from Casey over by Moto as the hatch was getting popped open right above. Perfect timing to take Noi out. These are those little moments of chaos that you want to take advantage of if you're going to go for an anchor-heavy composition that'll allow you to stay on top.
Myth yet again opening up the curtains, and they'd wish to follow up yet again. Hibana taking heavy shots, and that's going to be Duskin with a second into the round. A great 5v3 to establish, and it's going to be forcing a burst of energy to implode from EWAVE as they only have half a minute left. Now with the diffuser, it's all good and fine. We need to play off of these hatches and the verticality we established, right? There's not enough pressure. You're going to be dropping down into guns and arms of Myth who are ready, waiting for you very warmly at that. And then meanwhile, we have the Thermites completely stuck, all being pushed, and so is Blue Stairs. But look at Myth's pressure they're putting on. We take out one a second, and it's all left down to the final, who drops down Club Hatch, but in the end, it just won't be enough. The pressure here from Myth is absolutely terrifying. I mean, going into any angle, we can see EWAVE are struggling to even move a foot, and then the second they get too close for comfort, their head's already popped.
Oh, Myth is on EWAVE big time when it comes to the setup. How many of those picks came out in the middle of setting up? Whether it was going for hatches or trying to go for verticality to take one. Every time. Those are the big points that Myth Academy are really striving in their anchoring. And that's what defines, in my opinion, a really good anchor. Once this setup starts to go down, once you know where the attackers are, your ability to push back against that in the midst of the chaos, when things are starting to tense up and take those crucial picks, in my opinion, that defines a very strong, proactive, anchor-heavy composition. That's exactly how you do it. And this, if you're going to run something like that, which for most teams I would never recommend, but if you're going to do that, the way that Myth Academy handled it is exactly how it needs to go. So take notes to everyone else who's watching. Perfectly done.
It's a greatly established formula that we have from EWAVE. We go in and attack, but yet again, it's that time waste that Myth have under the control. Not only is that pressure I've mentioned earlier constantly coming about, as we do have a lead from Smarts here. Going to pause it out as we do continue chatting on about. I think this is going to be resulting in a rehost, and soonly to return to our lovely faces just in a second. But yet again, let me get back to the point here. I mean, EWAVE, they are struggling to get through any point. Yes, they get to the objective, because it seems like Myth are allowing them to do that. Once that hatch is popped, they can't move. They try to go for a bit of a rotate over to Garage. It's gone. It's split up, and they cannot make a move. They feel like they're completely checked. I mean, there is no other opposition for them to go with, and as much as I'd love to see them start flowing flashes and blindly going in the end, it's Rainbow Six Siege, and this is for a reason called a tactical shooter.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that Myth Academy is playing these crosses and working so tightly with each other is what makes it so much more difficult to kind of dissect. You don't have a player that's off roaming around, running about, that you can target and hunt down. You don't have that opportunity. You have to create that by making a divide, whether it's smokes, flashes, anything like that. You need some kind of space to break up these crossfires, to try to go for these individuals and flush them out. And I think this is kind of where, looking at EWAVE's composition, they're kind of lacking in those type of operators that can allow for that divide and conquer tactic, which I think they sorely need right now. And Myth Academy is abusing that to its fullest extent. I mean, if you look at some of the gutsy positions they're taking, like the prone down blue hall, it just further reinforces the notion that EWAVE just does not have any dissecting power right now, and they're not bringing the right kits, in my opinion. And this is where I think Myth Academy has that right edge. And so long as EWAVE just keeps going against the grain and pushing into these crosses and trying to go for these violent crossfires with minimal space gains, I think they're going to continue to be on this loss streak. Even though I will say both of these teams, I think skill-wise, are very neck and neck. It's just the tactics and the decision making I don't think is quite right.
Now, just before we head over to the following match, we are having some technical difficulties in the background. We'll be solving them as fast as we can, but please stay tuned because we'll be back with you in just a moment.
Yep.
Okay, we're
All
back. Not much of a countdown, but we're back, and that's what matters. We said we'll be back with you in a moment, and we don't back off on our word. As well, Piercing, can you get us back to track with what happened up until now?
Oh, absolutely. Myth Academy has had a pretty strong start going against EWAVE. Although, don't get me wrong, there have been some violent back-to-back blows, at least in the first round. But the second round, it was a lot cleaner in favor of Myth Academy, with EWAVE Esports struggling to dissect and break down these crossfires and get the setup they were looking for. They got the vertical, as Myth Academy, last round on basement, completely walked off from it, but ended up getting absolutely shattered on the setup with the counter swings from the anchor heavy composition of Myth Academy. And now, with all of this time in hand that has passed, now it is a matter of EWAVE figuring out how they're going to break up this dynamic that Myth Academy has solidified and be able to get their way into plant. Because so far, they've been falling behind on numbers a little bit, but big time on space.
EWAVE here pivoting towards a bit more of an aggressive play would definitely be the icing on the cake, as right now we're needing that. We're needing less time waste, and we're needing a bit more aggression, a bit more plays, a bit more decisiveness. As of course, going into round 3, we made a full side rotation essentially, so with it, it's CC and Cash, it's the main breach side, because who wants to go bar and downstairs? That's uncanny, and people don't like it for a reason. Although in the meanwhile, we take a look at these lineups, we're rocking that Ying because she didn't get banned, and just like the Zami, just like the Fenrir, pick her because she's a powerhouse of an operator. Absolute power move. Now in the meanwhile, we have the Zofia, which is going to be tricking out the bandit. This is a strategy that we haven't seen in a while, and it's going to be working perfectly. As that open breach is right over there, and that's the hard breach. Absolutely demolished. It's not Noit. He finds Case.
Yeah, no, that's a big initial pick, especially taking down Scoopos. Big. Oh, a lot of damage coming in onto Noit. That's going to be coming in from Smart all the way from Warehouse Balcony. I'm telling you, that's a powerful position, and you cannot ignore it. And when you have an Azami there, it makes it so much more tricky to deal with. And I do wonder if EWAVE is going to try to put up with this problem. Duskin going to be able to get Magra Star down. That's going to be bringing the numbers back. But with a big damage lead coming into Myth Academy, as Kex going to sustain a significant amount of damage, now down to 40 HP. And we're barely past a minute, and we've already had some violent exchanges coming in, with Myth Academy coming out with a health advantage here. The diffuser abandoned on the Balk, which means that someone's going to get exposed to try to grab this diffuser, especially with the Legion Mine on it. If it's not grabbed sooner rather than later, that could prove a big problem time-wise in trying to go for a plant. But we'll keep that in the footnote for later on in this round. Right now, the big focus is getting that building presence, of which is still quite minimal for EWAVE Esports. They do manage to spot Duskin, knows he's been spotted, gonna be moving back up to red stairs here, and now, with a minute remaining, it's now the time to get that building presence, which so far is still quite minimal as the clock ticks.
EWAVE still looking to advance on their choke points, as up until now they have only won it. This is what we need here. Monster extending over toward that main side. Get construction going and cut off more rotations, as it's going to be Duskin with the second into the round. Does get traded out, but it's not going to be him. It's going to be Liggs, found out by Kex. That L85 looking quite strong, but the HP isn't here for EWAVE, as they're going to have to fight it quite rough. That's going to be damage right onto Duskin. He was on a lead, but no longer shut down by Monster. Nice elimination. A second one from Noit, and all left down to Smarts. Now the HP isn't looking great. One bullet to finish off basically all three of the operators, and it could be looking quite strong. That's going to start it off. It's a nice little way to open up the curtains, but we need two more. That's going to be the headshot. Pulls out the Deagle, and can we find it? Yes, we can! Smarts with a triple kill. 1v3 situation, third round, and with it, Myth are not going to be losing this 3-round streak they've gained for themselves.
Oh my gosh, they had a perfect push coming in from construction. Amazingly done to dissect that space, putting in Monster with Ying and setting up those flashes for a solid site tape. Amazing, but you didn't have to push the Azami. Azami was stuck. She had no option. The cache site collapsed. They didn't have to push her there, but man, she was able to get so much impact because they swung her. They could have been fine with waiting for the vault, and they could have tore into her right then and there, but they didn't. They exposed themselves to her, and they got burned in the end. Talk about a rapid turnaround for Myth Academy, despite what was looking to be a decisive round win for EWAVE Esports. that's a considerable setback. As now, not only do you have a problem getting the execute down, which EWAVE is clearing out, but you got a new issue on the front. And that is your post plant. You can't let someone isolated in a position like that do so much damage to you.
The main issue we should try to fix on improving here was EWAVE. I mean, of course you lost a round in a 1v3. The HP wasn't looking great, but the fact is that you've got more players. Quantity over quality in that situation. The first player, when it's lost, play together. Go for crossfires. You know he's on that rafters. You all need to just watch the window. Go for a flank or maybe cut off every single thing he can play off of. And that's what EWAVE didn't do. They just played it back, allowed these 1v1 situations to come about, and that was the bane to their strategy. And this is going to be the third round in a row, securing out a good quarter here for Myth as they look to continuing an even better one. This is a draw in the first half. They've already secured some sort of positive, even for the defense. When they switch over to the attack, I mean, at least they're not going to be in the negative, and that's what we need to look forward to. Two hard breachers in the meanwhile combined up with a Thatcher, and of course Myth, they lost out on that defense. So what do? We're going to be switching right over to that upstairs side yet again, although the two are being picked on. Cash is going to be an interesting one. In the meanwhile though, while stalling out the hard breach, we need to get these positions stuck, and with it, we need EWAVE to establish that sort of connection throughout the entire map yet again.
Well, absolutely. If they can't get these connections, which right now they're struggling to get these walls open, and that's time that EWAVE really can't afford, as time and space are kind of their big struggle points, and pretty much so far they've kind of been having these issues where they're not getting the space that they're looking for, requiring more sacrifices than what otherwise might be necessary. And when you have that mounted with the fact that there's no in-building presence from EWAVE Esports, it creates a unique problem. But speaking of the unique, you're going to get a trade coming in from Monster and Fluency. Two active utility trades going down. That means one hard breach remaining. Casey going to be able to catch Bask as well. That's going to be a one-person disadvantage for EWAVE. No territory gained. In fact, space lost over by Garage. And that's going to put EWAVE at a considerable disadvantage here going forward. They still have the drone on that Balk player. They are going to be able to catch Casey down. That's going to be Magrastar getting that refrag there. Now with a minute remaining, still trying to get that Cash player out. Noit going down in turn, looking more desperate for EWAVE, but only one player differential. Never mind. Now two. It's going to be up to the Balk player, Kex, to try to save this as all space has collapsed.
At this point, it's do or die. Yet again, Cax now in a position that Smarts was stuck in earlier, with a bit more HP on Matt, but still doable. 45 seconds, you have a lot more to work with, there's a lot less pressure, and you're working with a lot more space. That's the main issue, but when you're getting run out by Duskin, well, what do? You simply give up. That's the situation. Fourth round for Myth. They claim it out yet again, and the Flawless is still looking like an option here, because this is demolition. Round 5 coming about, and let me talk about Smarts. It's been basically 2 rounds since the rehost, and he's already stacked himself basically an ace. 3 kills in the first, 2 kills in this prior one, and with it, it has been an absolute KD run from him. Duskin as well. Maybe he's 1 kill behind, but that's still 2 kills per round. The influence these 2 players are bringing out with their frags is absolutely huge. Numbers. We are talking big numbers here. That's how the tides get turned, and with it, that's how EWAVE gets forced into this tactical timeout that they're going to have to use to hopefully reset the tempo. Meanwhile, disrupt Myth's wavelength as they try to get back on track to claim out the 5th and 6th round, and EWAVE really struggling out for these last 2 in the first half.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It seems like, unfortunately, EWAVE Esports, while they are trying to make some adaptations and some changes to their playstyle, and we can kind of see that in the pacing throughout the round, a lot different there, trying to focus on those external crosses. But again, they're just not getting the boots on the ground space that they need. And this is kind of where they've got to make a decision. Now, do we consolidate and full send a front and lockout tag out behind us with nomads or something like that? Or do we try to find a weak point and isolate from there? There's got to be something more to it than just a setup and raw gunfighting, because it's not really doing EWAVE any good. There's not much slice and dice coming out of this, and Myth just continues to double down, triple down, quadruple down, and it is really becoming a burden for EWAVE. I mean, even look at the utility that you have now. I wouldn't even be surprised if they start implementing a bit of a roam now with Capcan and Malusi, because so far they've been able to get away with everything, and I wouldn't be surprised if they overstayed their welcome on a roam and possibly give EWAVE an opening. This is what we tend to see as we get later into halves, is a bit of a flip, either from complacency, getting too comfortable, or from a wake-up call. And that's kind of the question, is which will be the case if EWAVE manages to succeed.
What I'm seeing here from EWAVE is no adaptation. We have 4 C4s on Myth Academy, and they decide to pick a Fuse of all operators, which math isn't mathing for me personally. In the meanwhile, they switch it off for a Deimos. Yes, while the rotation and, of course, flank isn't necessarily 100% and guaranteed, and the roam has not been present here from Myth. In the meanwhile, you pick out the Fuse. They have so many C4s, so many gadgets to take him out with, and he's basically just going to be a sore thumb in the strategy. In the meanwhile, while we take clear of this verticality, slow damage brought on by electricity to pull Kex, who's just trying to get hatches underway, and this is going to be the slow process of it. While though it is safe, you know, you don't go for that Thatcher risk to go with the Habana and maybe even use all the X Kairos, because, you know, even with the Thatcher, you take risks when that Tuberal grenade comes exploding by and freezing out your gadgets. It's the Maverick. He gets the job done. He's a perfect counter to him, and that's also another ban that we would have loved seeing here on Clubhouse. In the meanwhile, look at the verticality. Look at how much is established. Yet again, though, my fingers are tingling, and I'm feeling a C4 here, just not too sure of it. In the meanwhile, though, Myth, they are constantly switching up their lineup as well. Earlier, we saw the Scopos. We saw so many different operators. Now it's the Capcan.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I love the operator changes coming from Myth Academy, bringing out the Capcan. Nothing tickles my funny bone more than watching a player die due to something like that. Oh! Bask able to catch Duskin with a fuse puck. Oh, I haven't seen something like that in a long time, but that could be just a little bit of a lead that EWAVE sorely needs here. And keep in mind, the setup has been much better here. We're not seeing major losses of life in the setup like we saw before. Nitro goes out, doesn't connect, 2 down, now 3 as Lives goes down as well. They are getting that entry that they have been long looking for here. Monster to take Smarts as well. It looks like Sight is there, but Casey is going to try to make a run for it, make a fight out of the situation, but just can't get past Monstar, who goes on a tear onto Sight.
Well, it's without to say that EWAVE absolutely shut me the hell up. I was picking at that Fuse, absolutely bullying the pick, and then somehow he got a kill with the Plux, the cluster charge of all gadgets. That's a bingo board for the entire year to be picked up, because that, like you said it, Piercing, it's a thing that doesn't happen occasionally. It's a rare sighting we're seeing. It's like a comet shower in the sky, and well, I'm gonna be glad. Even though I was completely proven wrong, I'm taking it. You know, that's really made my day, because Plux are so fun to use, especially on that Fuse. And in the meanwhile, let's talk about the highlights here. EWAVE getting their first round in the 5 we've already played, and although they may be looking at a 4-2-5-1 half, it isn't the worst. It showed that this timeout actually works, and Myth, although they're starting to lose a bit of that composure they started off with, and got a really good foundation for the second half. EWAVE, they're back in and running, and they're ready to take grasp of the rounds yet again.
What I think was so confusing about that last round is that if you noticed how Myth was playing around that side, they were much more passive than they usually are. I didn't see that same level of counter aggression that I was honestly expecting to happen. It never came. And I'm not really sure why Myth stepped back on that, but that was kind of their biggest boon when it came to dealing with EWAVE esports on basement. And they just went for full anchor and kind of just let EWAVE come to them, which I don't know if they were expecting their utility to have a bigger impact on that, which it clearly didn't. But either way, they still have a 3-round lead, and they've now got the site that they have won pretty cleanly up to this point, every time, to try to maintain that lead. But remember on this site how close it was in actuality. It was clean on Jim and Bedroom, but not so much here, as Casey will be able to get a immediate pick onto Noit. That's going to be that entry op out of the way. Oh, Magristar going out as well. That's going to be coming from Duskin. 2-pick deficit. That's the aggression that I was wondering where it went, but I guess they just channeled it all into CCTV and cash.
Great retaliation from mid. They didn't like the prior round, so now they're bringing that aggression you so called out, Piercing here, and they heard your voice. It was like a guide, and now they're ready to absolutely throw a fit, as it's working out for them. Their aggression is really being output. In the meanwhile, they're playing cautious. They're not necessarily running into the guns. They know they've established already this two-man lead. Now they just need to play off of it, snowball the situation, maybe get a second, maybe get a third, and with it, now we just continue off. But Cax, he gets on their case, and that's going to be Casey off the board. Nice little hard breach, could be denying some background. In the meanwhile, Fluencio, that's that MP7 coming into action for a second time. It's a 4v1, and it's all locked down to Duskin to finish it off. Myth Academy 5-1 to first half. Absolute natural 20 of a way to start it off. As of course, it seems like EWAVE, even though they used up that tactical timeout, they seem to be barking up the wrong tree.
Barking up the wrong tree, they sure did indeed. I mean, talk about a very strong crossfire coming in from Myth Academy. Perfect, fine-tuned aggression. Putting the fight to EWAVE, but not overextending and allowing for their red player to pick up the pace. These kind of moment-by-moment plays do Myth Academy so much good. But with that being said, it's now EWAVE's turn to try and do the same thing. And that, I am curious whether or not they will be able to pull that off, or if we're going to see a situation where Myth Academy is just going to absolutely blow out this matchup. Now, when I talk about a blowout, I'm not saying that, oh, there's a big, skill diff and blah, blah, blah. No. I don't hit on teams like that. EWAVE, I definitely see where they're going, and I absolutely believe that they have made improvements, but I do believe they're still having those struggles with shot calling, and I think it's that tactical aspect where I think that there is a big blowout possibly incoming. But this is the opportunity that they have to try to turn this around, and they're gonna have to. They only got one round of buffer in them for this entire half.
What I'm loving here from EWAVE and Myth, both in general competitive downstairs on Church. You always have this quad of operators that are just a general tradition, the Mute, the Kate, Tubarao, Malusi, if possible. And then the last one, which really complements your playstyle. For Myth, we saw the Scopos and even the Capcan, although that didn't work out the best. Now we see the Goyo, a great rotation of operators. In the meanwhile, it's going to be Myth securing out that top floor, going for a quick change out of flankers. Any type of roamer here is going to get flushed out by that Deimos. Also, Kapitao and Grim being brought to the action. This is going to be really interesting. And solely focusing the verticality only on Smarts. That bug player will be a wonder to see because, yet again, you're putting him at risk. A C4 from below, a shot that isn't expected. It could all end that verticality. And if you don't have a RAM for security for a backup, well, it kind of goes to, downhill. And that's what we're looking for. Now, still, not much progress has been made here by Myth. They look to continue off to this first floor. They've cleared out everything. That's great. But you can do that simply with drones, and EWAVE showed that because they had quick moves, quick turnarounds. It was only the execution that was lacking.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that with it being kind of, where it stands right now, I mean, so far, things aren't going too bad. I mean, a minute and 23 seconds. We're not seeing too much setup coming from Myth Academy. I mean, most of it focusing on the clear, which honestly, I would argue was kind of unnecessary and a bit of a time drain. But now they've got to get a hunt going close to sight and try to find these players over by Armory. And they still haven't gotten hatch open with a minute remaining. This is kind of scary as EWAVE is pretty much sitting comfortably so far. But now they've got bottom main stairs presence, and this is where all the marbles are. If Fluency can find one here, I think that would be a big stepping stone coming in for Myth Academy. But they need to find one or get boots in the ground at some point because they are still nowhere to be found on the basement level.
Waiting for an engagement yet again. Team shots coming out from Monster, not preferable, but it's not going to be anything major of the sorts to keep an eye out for. And Myth right now on the attack, eyes on the prize, ready to get these kills running, and the green bees are coming out, ready to delay information. That's going to be Smart starting it off. Cax found off the board 6 foot under, ready to put more. It's going to be a double reach right here for EWAVE as they get some sort of profit just as they finish out the dropping Capitao. Bolts are down, and so is going to be Fluency as it's all left down to Smarts. Earlier he made a 1v3, but not this time around. round. Noit is there to shut him off before Keek has any attempt, as all three players were bunched up, and that's already some sort of adaptation we saw from EWAVE earlier in a 1v3 against Smarts. They were all playing a ranked game of their own. Now they were bunched together, and if one went down, well, Smarts was going to go right down with them.
I really don't understand what the direction was from EWAVE. They didn't really have much of a setup, and they were, like you correctly stated, all bunched up and greatly funneled over by Kitchen. And as we all know, as anyone who's played ranked for more than a month would be able to tell you, that funnel into Kitchen is almost always a death trap. I mean, there were plenty of other options to work with. There was no one in tunnel. They could have went there. They could have full sent it down main stairs, but there really just wasn't much there. And basement is not one of those maps where you want to try to funnel like that. It really isn't. You need to have a two front. Basement is almost impossible to attack without a two front. You either need, you know, whether it's kitchen and tunnel, or blue and main, or blue and moto, you know what I mean? Or blue and kitchen. Like, you need some kind of two front to make it work. And it didn't come. It was very one-fronted. And I think that this was just due to a misallocation of time, right? They put too much effort into clearing from second floor, clearing on first floor, and I think they kind of played it too safe and strapped themselves a time. And I think this is where they kind of need to read the room on how Myth wants to defend and go from there.
What scares me here is still the score. Even though EWAVE returned around, and yes, we're up one from what we were in the first half, my fear here is because Myth are one round away from match point. Now, for some players, it may seem like whatever, but when you're in competitive, it's a huge burden on one's shoulders. It gets you thinking. One round lost, one big mistake, even minor one, and it's all gone. Yet again, remember, this is a best of one. This is not going to be a best of three. There are no second chances, and there are no lifelines here. It's the winner takes all, and with it, it's going to be soonly down to the wire for EWAVE if they don't change it up. He's going to be proving them wrong. Monster, he wanted to be aggressive, but was shut down shortly after. The power switch was turned off, and with it, that's going to be the opening here as they look to continue aggressing down. Breaches are open. That's going to be so much pressure here, as of course, Smarts, he's going to be making his way towards red. A punish coming out, but is gonna get finished off by Noit. That's gonna be Fluency. A nice little refrag late on, although we have to clear out the shield player. Mute is gonna be quite a blunder.
Oh, and speaking of blunders, another Nitro to take out yet another attacker, but Smarts does manage to pick up Magro Star. That's going to be one, and he comes to wrap around over by Red. Will he be able to get the pick? He does! Noit not going to be ready for Smarts in that powerful position deep into CCTV, now bringing it down to a 3v2, but with a lot of movement still available to EWAVE Esports. To say that this is out of the question would be a foolish conclusion to make at this point, as now it's just a matter of trying to find a one here and bring those numbers back. But as the pressure mounts, there's still no one over by Logi, so this is a safety zone they have available. And oh, I don't think I could agree with holding that close to the bedroom door. That's going to lead to one going out. However, a very nice shot coming out from Kex, going to bring it to a 2v1. They're still going to have to push through a funnel, which is going to make things a bit tricky here, as this could be a breaking point if they're not properly prepared. Smart's trying to find this gym player out. Can't really quite scope them out or displace them. Still going to be a problem. But here comes the Balk rotate coming in. That's going to be coming from Smarts. Looking for this player. Spots him through the rotate. Can't finish the job, but that'll be where Casey comes in. Walking into bedroom, giving them that match point.
Greed was not a sin that was committed here by Myth, as they played it safely. They lost that one player, and the second it was a 1v2 announced, the realization hit them right in the head. We cannot play this alone. We go this together. A nice little rotation, a safe one all the way from cash to balcony, because we are not taking a single risk here. It is too much to put on the line, so we wait for a balcony play to come out. We spot the Frost. Okay, if she shoots our teammate, I'm going to swing in like the ace I am. The AK-12, it's in my hand, so I can deliver some shots. And that's how Myth right there played it really safe. In the very early, that 5v3 situation, that type of 1vx that they delivered, it's really a hard jab right in the liver for EWAVE each single time they're given off it. It's not necessarily a question of can you do it or can you not. It's a question of can you not get to that point before Myth absolutely demolished the competition. Now, this is what I mean. It's a 4-round deficit. A lead for Myth by 4. Match point. Keep that in mind. 1 away. It's best of 1. This is going to be it. The coup de grace, that's the round from each single point on from now. Okay, EWAVE, they can win out this round. That's cool. We get closer. But each round that we are going to be casting right now, Piercing, is going to be a possibly last one for today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Pretty much EWAVE Esports is looking down the barrel right now, and at any point that trigger can pull and it's lights out. It's really a matter of how they can handle being under that duress the whole time and keep themselves alive for just a bit longer. And look at Myth Academy bringing that Ying again. Oh boy, that's going to be a little bit scary. We've seen what that can do and the potential that it has. And that's where I want to see where they go with this on the side take. Because that slice and dice, I'm telling you, being able to break up those crosses with utility like that is incredibly underrated here, in my opinion. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to, is how they're going to be able to leverage that, or if Legs will stay alive long enough for that potential to even come to fruition. We still got the bandit tricking. No walls have been opened yet. Monster, I'm sorry. I'm mixing up names. Able to take out Fluency. That is going to be a big pick. That was that kind of flank attacker now out of the picture. And no major grounds in either setup or really anything. Space, time. This is going pretty rough for Myth Academy. Kex taking smart as well. He's going to go down from the vertical, but Kex isn't done. He's looking for another. There's the swing. The dots connect. Kex to take legs. Going down as well. That's going to be a double kill from Logi. Bask going to go aggressive on the Duskin as well. It's just aggression after aggression. And with that, it is now a 1v5. Oh, I think we've got a claim about
a window glitch.
An exploit.
That's interesting. That caught even me off guard. What? When did that happen? I didn't spot it.
Oh, I think I know what they're talking about. I think they're talking about the glitch where you jump off the bed and clip the window. I think that might be a glitch. I don't know.
Oh, we're going to have to take this with production. We're going to have to, we're going to pause this out because this is not a situation us casters can handle, sadly. So for now, we're going to let production handle that, give us the details. And yet again, while all of this is happening, Piercing, what do you think went wrong here for EWAVE, or rather for Myth? Because, it's a 5v1 right now.
I think the big thing that kind of went awry for Myth, and let me take a look at the droning matrix. Honestly, I feel like they might have not really held on to their intel quite properly. Look at how many drones they've got remaining. They've got only 2 on the board, and none of them coming from Ace. And that's what I think is so interesting, is the fact that you have lost 8 drones. I think there might be a bit of inefficiency when it comes to figuring that out. If you have 8 drones remaining and you can only get 1 person out of all of that, that's really inefficient. And I think that's kind of where Myth might be struggling here, is with an improper use of utility, getting information. And because of those gaps, as a result of all their drones just getting shot out so fast, I think that's leading to a situation where they're just getting caught out back to back.
Yeah, it's a rough spot. Even though Myth in that situation, they were losing quite heavily, I think it's really that type of consistency they've been upkeeping through the majority of these rounds. Hell, if we count this as a round for, EWAVE to keep, there's still 2 times the round count on their own side, and that's really strong. It's the match point. Yet again, there's not much to say. And EWAVE, I think each single round that they've won has been really strong. There hasn't been weak rounds. The lowest amount of players that we've had on an EWAVE winning round has been a 1v3. Now, for some other rounds, it's been down to this 1v1 situations, 1v2 situations for good old Myth. And that's a problem, because it shows that EWAVE can put up a fight. They just can't finish it, and that's where it gets a bit more troublesome. Now, right now, as everything's getting resolved in the background, we will be throwing it to a short break just so we can sort it all out, and we'll be back with you in a moment. Alright, now before we get back into the match, we do want to kind of sort out the things that are maybe unknown, maybe unclear to some, or just, to set the rules straight. The previous round that we just saw before we went to this rehost, and as we're sorting things out in the back, we're going to be redoing that round because a certain glitch occurred, which, Piercing, if you can take it away from here.
Yeah, so pretty much what happened was in that round, there was a glitch that was, that occurred. Now, whether intentionally or otherwise, I don't really think that's the main focus here. It was the fact that you were able to prop yourself up against a window frame and actually sit on the window frame, which is not an intended feature of Rainbow Six Siege, and that did actually have a consequence of turning a 5v2 into a 5v1, which we've seen 5v2s come out and turn into wins. It's not an unwinnable situation. And so because of that, we've had moderators and admins kind of talk about it and figure out, what to do about the situation. So after reviewing the rule book and coming together to understand what the glitch means and how it impacted round and showing that for a fact it did occur, it did have a real impact, we decided to go with the decision that we're going to be replaying round 9. So the standing will be a 6-2, but we're going to be replaying it just as it was. So that's where we'll be going right back into the game when everything's all said and done. But just wanted to make sure you guys knew what was going on there. I mean, it's not like a accusation of exploits or anything crazy like that. It's just unintended glitch happened. It had a real impact. Could have potentially shifted an otherwise winnable round into a secured loss. And as a result, we're going to replay that round to ensure competitive integrity and fairness.
Now, just so we're on the same ground here, ladies and gentlemen, this is not, yet again, like he said, it's not going to be a big rehost. We're not going to make a big deal out of it, but neither should you. If this bothers someone, like I said, these are the rules. If we're not going to be keeping up about them, what's the point of having them? If it's broken, it's probably in the rules that, of course, if an exploit is used, intentionally or not intentionally, this is one of the lighter punishments. In some competitive matches, it would even go to the round being won by the opposition, but we're going to be giving it back. We're going to how we started. It's going to be 6-2, like mentioned by Piercing, and yet again, we're just trying to do our best to be professional, to not allow these things to skip by, and at the same time be very cautious about our actions being taken. Now, before we go into the match that we're going to be seeing, yet again, we're Clubhouse. Let's get past this. Let's get back into round number 9. And of course, let's chat about what happened up until now. What's gone wrong, what's gone right, and what should we fix and what we shouldn't. Well, we should definitely fix that score that has been brought about. It's 6-2 if we go to how it is now. And Myth, they're 4 above. Yet again, 4 chances, all 1 round, all 1 need, and with it, they claim it out. Clubhouse, the most traditional map there can be, and EWAVE, they're quite behind.
Yeah, no, they have sustained a significant deficit in round differential, and that's primarily came from the fact that they struggled big time when it came to attacking on the first half. They started off on attack, but they really couldn't find a way to push through the crossfires and the powerhouse positions that Myth was able to establish, and that created a lot of problems for them, leading to a significant 5-1 lead. EWAVE able to pick up a round, but then promptly getting shut down again, bringing it back to a 6-2, which is what makes this such a crucial round, because now EWAVE has to show a level of consistency in flushing out Myth as they did the same to them when they were defending. It really now comes down to how these attacks play out and if Myth can keep their numbers up and mitigate space gained by Myth on their attack.
As long as Myth can really lose that grasp and EWAVE picks it back up, I think there's a possibility. Yet again, it's all about consistency and adaptation. If one team does it faster than the other, of course the score is going to be imminent and there's going to be a quick victory. And as these two teams try to exchange that type of balance between each other, EWAVE, they are slowly lagging behind and falling a bit short. In the meanwhile, though, I think they still have the opportunity. Yes, 4 rounds is a lot, and without any second chances, no lifelines on the line, it's definitely going to be a challenge, but it's still quite possible, and hopefully we'll be seeing it, because yet again, who likes a one-sided match? It's just not fun. We like to see action, close matches, bring it to overtime for all we care. It's even the more the merrier, and with it, it's going to be an absolute blast. Now, this is Clubhouse. this is a map that I would say represent teams as a whole, because strategy-wise, attackers, defenders, they are both known. The meta is still quite common to be recognized by every single player in the competitive scene, which just leaves it down to chemistry, communication, and of course, your skill on your own plays, and of course, with how you work with the team. That's why I love Clubhouse. It shows teams as a whole, and right now, Myth, they are being just a bit higher on that pedestal.
Yeah, they definitely have a bit of an edge as far as their confidence goes. And I do feel like they just have a better ability to take targeted aggression and nail their fights when they want to. But one thing I did notice, and we kind of talked about this prior to going on break, is that the util efficiency coming from Myth has been rather poor. If we look at how much utility they're investing for the space they're getting and the time that they're moving up, they're not really keeping in tune, right? They had 8 drones shot out when they had taken massive casualties before even really making any significant building presence. You should not be losing 8 drones to get 1 person. That's disastrous. You want to be able to hold on to that intel and be able to make quick work of it. And so far, it seems like there might be a fundamental problem in how they are leveraging their tactical equipment in order to get the job done. This is where I start to wonder if Myth will be able to kind of be more conservative about their utility usage to be more efficient, or if we're going to see a situation where they keep getting those pieces flushed out and they have to go in with minimal setup and minimal intel, effectively going into the blind on EWAVE's terms, which would give a lot of opportunity for a comeback.
That's going to be interesting to see. It's without a doubt that hopefully we don't return into this match and get a 1-round victory here from Myth and they just absolutely take it. Because it's a best of 1, you know, it still bothers me. I want to see more matches like these, because both of these teams, they have so much to offer. EWAVE, they are known to be a strong team. They are one of the considered titans in this scene, and so is Myth. Although right now it is being a bit more ready for one team to take it. Up until now, we've had a discussion about how it's worked out and what we're looking forward to. Now we just have to get to the action, and I'm really sorry to do this to you, but again, we're going to have to slowly take you to a break, and we'll be back with you as soon as we possibly can be.
Yeah.
We are back and finally live. It took us a while, but that's the point. We really had to amp it up, bring it all the way to the edge, and with it, this is going to be all time intensity. Do EWAVE make a comeback and get 4 rounds in a row, or do Myth get one in between and manage to just shut this down within regulation? We're going to have to see, but Piercing, we're back. How are you thinking going into it?
Honestly, I'm feeling like everyone might be getting a little bit or kind of rusty now that we've kind of had these or delays in kind of dealing with this rule situation, but I feel like it's not gonna be too much of a big impact on the rounds. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball that can see all the alternative universes like freaking what's his name? I don't watch Marvel movies. Someone help me here. Doctor Strange. No, not Doctor Strange.
What?
Oh God, I just.
Who are we thinking about?
Every British person in the world.
Who are we thinking about? Give me a description, Piercing.
Doctor Strange or something like that. I don't know.
I mean that is a character from Marvel. Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Oh,
the magician.
It is?
The magician.
Oh, I was thinking of someone else then. Yeah, the magician, like that can see all the realities or whatever.
Yeah, that's
but
Doctor
anyway,
Strange.
that was an analogy that went horribly wrong. But either way, I feel like this is probably going to be a similar situation despite the rust, unless something goes horribly wrong for EWAVE Esports here. I think fundamentally the flaws still are the same when it comes to util efficiency. We're already seeing 2 drones down and out off the rip, but that remains to be seen. I mean, we've seen bigger clutches. Obviously, we've seen 1v5s before, so it's definitely in a realm of possibility for there to be a recovery. But now we get to see it all unfold in the truest, most integral way possible.
Myth, you got a second chance here, let's be honest, and with it, let's make the most of it as possible. Going into CC and Cash, we're back to Gym and Cash, or Gym and Bedroom, Gym and Cash. No, Cash is being pushed. That's what we're on, silly goose. Now, it's a 5v5, not much aggression from any of these teams. A minute has already passed, and both of them are looking to get proactive with each other, as in the meanwhile, we need to have some sort of opening here to get that situation in, and also get those strikes rolling. Because when Thunder strikes once, it surely strikes twice when you're talking about EWAVE and Myth Academy. Nice little denial of breach here by Cax, as that bandit trick is going to be going absolutely off, and a quick rotation from Myth.
Yeah, and I mean, so far, we're still seeing a minimal building presence, still trying to get that construction wall, which they still haven't gotten yet. So far, no picks coming out from either team, so it is pretty slow. Oh, and as I say that, Kex does manage to get one onto Duskin, another one going out from Noit onto Smart, but McFroster goes down to Casey. That's going to bring it down to a 2v4, unless Thermite can get revived here. Does manage to spot Noit. That is going to go down. Kex going to be able to go down as well, as Casey will pick that up too. This is now a 2v2 with Thermite unlikely to be revived here, being out onto the balcony, or possibly could, but still in a rather precarious position. If he goes for that revive, it's going to be very high risk, very high reward. And he does manage to get that revive. That's going to effectively turn it into a 3v2. But with with them still having a lot to go as far as making it dare. Oh no, Fluency taking Monster. Now a 3v1. This is looking really scary either way. Oh, there's the push in. Doesn't succeed. Bass gonna be able to call that out. Taking down Fluency. Now a 2v1 and has to hop in. There's the hop in. Bass gonna call it perfectly. Now down to this last fight. Gonna have to try to grab the fuser or take this player out. Can he do it? No, he can't, as Bass will be the one to clutch it out against Casey. And EWAVE is still in it.
Wow. Myth, that was it. That could have been it. It was a 3v1 situation. What happened then and there? That's my question, and I don't think we're going to be getting an answer. Besides the fact that we had one swinging in from construction, punished. He's low on HP. What else do you expect? Then we have 2 players who are also not looking to the brighter side of their healthcare, and well, the insurance wasn't backing them up because that was the pistol that managed to deliver the final blow, and one right before it because yet again, pushing in alone, jumping in with the window, greed getting to the best of you. That's where EWAVE is going going to be claiming the rounds and claiming one against you, getting one closer and now only 3 away. Although I do make it sound like it's a small count. In round count in Rainbow Six Siege, it is not. 3 rounds are a huge score to still take into account. And I think it's going to be even huger plays we're looking at here. Bask already pulling out that Boss G. He knows it's serious talk now. All down to business. The Boss G is all out. And Fluancy, he's going to be going the counter opposite of Vigil. That's going to be the Dokkaebi. Possibly rocking that MK14. Possibly not. We're going to have to see. And as we go downstairs, Church, this should be EWAVE's shot at taking yet another round due to this being basically the best side on Clubhouse.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that this is going to be very doable, but I think the important question is, what does Myth do in turn? You now have a player who's roaming on second floor, and you have a top down, which was very inefficient time-wise and led to a lot of struggles. So I think now the question is, how do you go about this clear while still getting the time efficiency that you need? And that's where Myth Academy has a puzzle that they have to pick apart. And so far, they're not picking that puzzle very well, as Bask will be able to take Fluency and does manage to fall back onto basement level. That's going to be a big loss coming in for Myth Academy.
It's a big loss. That is the best way to describe it there, Piercing. It's not only Dokkaebi clearing out the roamers, and Bask, well, he's holding that position still strong. In the meanwhile, it's huge information, and most importantly of all, it's guns, which Myth at some points lack. Even in the earlier 1v3 situation, which I'm going to pick at them for just for a single bit because it was still a loss that could have handed us the victory. EWAVE here, they are taking it back and they're looking better, stronger, and harder than ever. And of course, nice impacts coming out from below to try to deny a Maverick trick, which is a bit questionable, but you know, we try our best. Pokeballs are still going to be doing some damage. Not anything of the sorts to keep your eye on, but as of course, we keep it all down to earth. Basic push, we get the hatches open, verticality too. We've seen it before, we see it yet again. Where the action starts though is going to be that execute, and I'm waiting all for it.
Oh yeah, once the execute kicks off, I think that's going to be the interesting point, because so far, EWAVE Esports, after that initial pick, has been very passive, and this is where I wonder how much Myth Academy is going to be able to get off of the vertical. We are starting to see a little bit of that, trying to take down as much utility you can, try to hunt down these players over and hiding in EWAVE Esports. But I think we're going to see that same problem again, pushing in from one front. You've got one towards main, you've got one going for the drop on Moto, but not much else beyond that, which I think is not going to be an ideal situation. You don't want to have a placement like this where you're one-fronted. This is how you lose basement. If you can get something else, that could help a lot. But this is a step in the right direction. Duskin catching Magstrar and Smarts as well. This is big. Casey does go down, however, and now Smarts is down to 8 HP. This is still dire for Myth Academy, but the fact of the matter is there are 2 confirmed dead from EWAVE, and you're looking at potentially 2 dead coming in from Myth Academy. 15 seconds to go. This is the final push. Here they start to execute, finds one in Church, can't connect, no way to finish the shot. Cassie taking another onto Keck, 7 seconds remaining, and they are now on site, but both Smarts and Casey go down with 1 second remaining. Needs to find his pick and can't because time is running out.
Oh, what a Scooby-Doo episode over by Blue. We had a run of game and tag, as of course the last player, one was down, that was the Malusi. All we needed is one headshot to be delivered, but in the end it's just not coming through. A good attempt by Myth, but it's only an attempt, and A is scored for it, because it's not going to be a perfect score. Myth Academy finally taking into account that now they've lost 2 rounds in a row. This is going to be a bit of trouble. We call for resorts, and that's going to be that tactical timeout coming in. Of course, also Monster announcing in chat that he's going to be restarting the game. A very gentleman-like approach at it. Hopefully he gets back in time. Hopefully, yet again, that's only hope. We can cross our fingers, because if he doesn't, honestly, I do not want to get into a third rehost. I do not want to get back into that. I don't think anyone here does. So let's continue going to how we were. Even after this, Myth are now struggling, I'd say. If this tactical timeout doesn't fix it for them, I don't know what they will, because they certainly can't call Bob the Builder. They can't call anyone else for it. It's them versus EWAVE, and EWAVE, well, it's the best way to call it, but they are right now quite bloodlusted. Now, okay, this is going to be a bit of a question, but I mean, we have the tactical timeout. It's out, which is going to be forcing a timer pause. Now, this is going to be interesting. we're going to be delaying it just for a second so we can wait for Monster to get back up and running. And with the 6-4 piercing, 2 more rounds remain. And Myth, right now, they're starting to slowly stand on their last 2 feet.
Yeah, if I were Myth, I would definitely be worried right now. And that timeout was a smart play, because if you call that timeout right before going into overtime, I would say that's probably too little too late. At least this gives you an option to fine tailor whatever you come up with in your timeout into that final match point situation. So this is where I think, Myth Academy really needs to focus on being more proactive in their tactic adjustment, because so far, I mean, they just cannot pick up an attack round. They're getting absolutely blasted whenever it comes to, spacing. And maybe that's just the nature of the beast with Clubhouse, but I'm seeing both these teams just not being able to gain any significant grounds. Although EWAVE was a bit more, or Myth was a bit more dire when it came to EWAVE attacking, considering they just could not dissect Myth Academy on their executes. Myth has had a little bit more success, but they just couldn't close it out. But both seem to have a big trouble with building space. So the question now is, do you double down on breaking things up on the execute and just kind of take the punches as they roll on the way there? Or do you try to break the mold and separate yourself from the other team by trying to be more efficient with gaining space?
My real actual worry here for Myth is the fact that when they were on defense, they were playing really aggressive. And I mean aggressive, pushing into every angle, get that peek, get that kill. When switching over to the attack, that has completely switched out for them too. They are playing passive on the attack, aggressive on the defense. We reverse that role. That's how it traditionally should be, but they take a second route. And at the same time, we see the passive purely from looking at the lineup. There's going to be no Thatcher. There's going to be Impact EMPs and the Maverick as a backup, but to force out a Thatcher just to get a fast and maybe a bit risky pick on that main breach is questionable. He's there. The Thatcher is. They are not rocking that super out to deny it. All that's left is the Cade, who clearly can't deny the breach because he's not bandit. It just doesn't happen in time. EWAVE are basically offering up the main breach, just forcing a bit of a pick here with that Cade being brought out. How Myth here are going to respond is, yet again, we see the Maverick the Buck combination coming out for that soft wall breach, and while though it could be risky, we don't see the Maverick on repel revealing even his feet and a possible run out. EWAVE just aren't taking that approach. They're playing back, relaxed, and waiting for an opportunity to strike.
Uh-oh. Tozy spotted, but Nitro out as well. Both looking out for blood, but it's going to be Magrostar throwing out the Nitro before getting those Tootsies. That's going to be Fluency going down in turn. That's going to be already a player deficit, but Kex also going down as well, so it's not all dire, as it's now an even 4v4 on that initial entry, although losing a bit of that soft destruction does kind of blow a little bit. But this isn't a site where you really need that much, so it's not the biggest deal. Duskin with a very strong entry into Bedroom, going to get a fast pick onto Bask. This is huge presence going in favor of Myth Academy, as they now have construction control. And as they go for this construction wall, this is going to be possibly a breaking point. We've seen how strong these teams can be once they get that construction control. And now that they have it, this could be trouble for EWAVE Esports. But as long as Casey's still around, they're kind of pinched out. I would say if they can find a way to target this player, they might have a little bit of hope.
I love how Myth aren't using the Mavericks for breach, but necessarily to use it as breach is intended. Cut off the rotation and punish anyone for getting right in front of it. Keys here, bringing it down to a 4v2. It's all left on the line here for EWAVE because they need to clutch it out. A 2v4 situation is nothing short of absolute excellence. The plant is going down. Keys with a second, and all left down to Noid. The fire is burning him bright, and he walks right into Duskin's sight. It's going to be GG's for Myth Academy as they take the best of one today. So much rehost, so much back and forth situations, but in the end, we finally reach the very end, and we get a victor shortly after. A 7-4 score is going to be quite dominant. A very good start here from Myth. In the end, though, they could finish it out. 2 rounds is all they need, and that's exactly what they obtained. This is going to be the upper bracket final finished today. That was fantastic. That was great to see. And for both of these teams, great efforts. Although, yet again, we did go through some background processes to get to it, in the end, it was still a blast to watch.
Oh yeah, and I think both of these teams still bring some violent energy with them. I don't really think that the difference between these teams is truly that great, other than maybe that defining difference when it came to how they went about their attacks. I still think Myth generally had a better equation for dealing with that. But now looking at these brackets, it's now Myth Academy is going to be secured, and it's whoever wins between EWAVE and Esports and Project Black X that will be advancing to fight again against Myth Academy. So for all we know, we could see this same matchup yet again, but instead of a BO1, it'll be through a BO3, I believe, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
It should be. I think it should be.
Yep. But either way, what I still look forward greatly to seeing what happens between Project Black X and EWAVE, because they're going to be getting a round 2 with each other. They will be getting a rematch, as we are seeing from these brackets, and if EWAVE Esports comes out on top, it'll be a rematch again. So a little bit of redundancy there, which honestly, I'm all for that. A little bit of a rivalry and a rematch to boot. So I am very interested to see how those matches will come up. Because again, both teams that I'm very familiar with, PBX and EWAVE, and I would love to see how those teams come out and go against each other. Now that they've learned how these teams play, how will the dynamic shift? That's what I'm looking forward to.
We are all looking forward to it, but sadly, like all things, this match must come to an end, and so does this stream. With it, yet again, thank you all so much for the players, for making this possible, for playing it through all the very end and sticking with us, to the viewers who called it, who were calm in the situations that were happening, and of course, supporting your teams in the chat. Thank you so much to the production, of course, Ice and Fire, Baba, everyone you know, the management, the mods in chat, absolute units. And of course, thank you so much, Piercing, for joining me along in this cast. It was an absolute pleasure to do. But with it, we're going to have to sign you off, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Take it easy.